Welcome. I want to thank you for being here. This is Suzanne Toro, and today we're going to dive into Mind You and Food, and we're going to dive into the aspect of chemicals, remediations, toxins, which is a thematic word for this moment on planet Earth. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're heading into spring. We're in that transitional phase from winter to spring, and in the Southern Hemispheres from summer to fall. And so we're going to pass the baton off from one hemisphere to the next. And as always, our equator, keep rocking steady. So this is a call and response to a lot of human-made disasters and natural disasters that have been taking place, and many have been taking place in the past bit since the beginning of the Gregorian New Year. And one thing that, really happens a lot in the Western modernized culture is there's so much information, and people take a bit of information and like, well, this does this and this does that. And it's a really broken way to nourish yourself. How I teach my students and my clients, I really encourage them to listen to their body and to really listen to their gut. If we go out in nature, when I take people out on vision quests, we sit there for days and you get to know nature, and it's very calm, and there's not a lot of grasping, and there's not a lot of discussion about how their body works and filtration, some of those things we're going to talk about today, and that this food has this and this does that. It's very intuitive. The animals know because they're supported by something greater, like we all are, to get what they need. And they're skillful at it. Even if there's like drought in the mountains, they'll come down lower and get plants to give them the hydration they need. And what I even recently have been really observing about this whole idea of hydration and water, and maybe that we're at a state where we're over consuming water, is that when I look at the animals, like I spend a lot of time in the Canadian forests on the Pacific Northwest, and I would observe, I'd watch the bears, the deer, and just check out what they were doing. And they would be so hardy and vital and eat very little bit. I've shared this before. And recently, in the past 6 months or so, I have a new puppy in my life, and I make all his food. What I notice is because of the type of foods that I'm putting in there, they're hydrating. They have water in them. So he does not require a lot of water unless we run and he works out a little extra than he needs to replenish, but not a lot. And then, or if I give him like a treat that's like manufactured and it might have a lot of sodium in it, then he's thirsty. And this is actually what happens with our bottled water. There's a lot of things in there. However, when we're giving a shout out today to the situation that has happened in East Palestine, Ohio, and I want to call out to Texas, to Michigan, to Louisiana, to Oregon, to South Carolina. Where else am I forgetting? There's been a big domino effect. And I think it's really important that we look at what we're doing, because these toxins that are being transported, I wouldn't get too lost in the conversation about maintenance and all this stuff, because we can transport anything safely if we so to choose. We also can manufacture things that don't require toxins. So today, when we're talking about Mind You and Food, I had put up a couple things on my TikTok just to give people an idea of a couple things they could introduce. Now, when you have a huge chemical intake and you're not sure of what all that is, this is going to tax the body. It will tax the liver. It will tax the lungs. It will tax the brain. It'll tax the heart and the entire blood system. And so my methodology one, because I learned this for myself because I was super reactive and have a situation where things can compound really quickly, a lot, which I've corrected. But most people on planet Earth are overloaded with environmental chemicals, food chemicals, soil chemicals. So it's not to freak you out. It's just to say, let's make this easy for right now. And oftentimes when we get too much into the specifics, then it's like, oh, that's why people are taking a lot of supplementation where it could be subtle. Now, for those of you living in an area that's been impacted by any of these disasters, it's going to be really important that you're gentle to your liver. So baseline, if you're like, well, I can't really afford a bunch of supplementation, maybe that's too expensive, and I just need to focus on food, and that's fantastic because that's my approach, is a little bit of herbs or supplementation to bring the body back in balance. And depending on how proficient the person is at listening to themselves and keeping a consistent nutrient-rich menu on a daily basis, then that can change as far as the herbs and the supplementation. But it doesn't have to be a lot because what I can explain to you, if the liver is taxed and all these nutrients aren't there in a certain fashion, the body will have a difficult time absorbing and repairing. So today I want to keep it really simple. If you're in an area where you have been impacted by any chemical toxic overload, that you go simple as possible. I want you to think like a baby, like you would feed your baby if you've had children. You're going to go really simple. So what did that look like? You know, what is your baby's first food? A lot of times it's avocado, it's sweet potato, it might have been rice cereal, and it's going to be vegetables or fruit that are cooked, but there's no salt added. There's no spices added. So this is how I would love for anyone that's been impacted and having a reaction to make it really simple. So what that would look like for an adult is steam veggies, steam if you eat meat or fish, cooked with barely any oil or anything like that for right now. Just super, super simple. Because this will let your body regenerate itself. And the liver, it does well being supported by some fish or chicken, but it also, when it's really toxic, it loves having just veggies and some fruit to clear the system, mostly plant. So the good remediators for that liver are going to be kale, are going to be celery, are going to be apples. You can do those poached or take the skin off. Are going to be carrots, sweet potatoes. Those are kind of be the baseline. So if you can get from someplace else or even canned, and the other component to this would be to get organic. And I know it's a little bit more expensive. However, the system's already taxed. Non-organic food has the potential, not always, to have what's known as glyphosate, so more chemicals. So if you add chemicals on top of chemicals and your body's already reacting, this is going to make it very difficult. And then the second component is going to be just to keep the liquids very simple. So really down to water, and you can put water with some lime in it, and have that outside of your meal time. And so if you are inspired, this is where I would start as far as helping yourself remediate. So some of the other things that you can get that are more on the like herbal or tea side would be to go for some chaga tea, which is a mushroom. And if anyone's out there listening from any of these impacted areas, if you reach out to me, maybe we can set up a local person to receive some goods. We set up Amazon shopping cart for them or wish list, and we get it sent to these communities. But chaga mushroom chunks would be really helpful and beneficial to anyone that's impacted. Milkthistle is the other component that is very helpful, and dandelion root is another one. So this can give you guys a start to just drink on some simple teas. Licorice root is another one that I like to use for the liver, really gentle. And again, you would go with preference. So it's not that you have to have all of those, but you could say, how do you feel about licorice? If you have a to something, there's a reason. So this is why we don't want to even have our children eat things that they don't like, because there's a reason there. Now, we'll do a whole food segment up for kids, but in general, you want to listen to their gut instinct. So you would either have just the chaga tea, licorice root tea, fennel tea, those things on their own, dandelion root tea, milkthistle. You can get this as a tincture. You can get, I think, some dried milkthistle too. I would recommend doing the tincture and get that in daily. You can pop it in the water, a dropper full. What this is going to do is it's going to help remediate and regenerate and help fortify your system as you move forward. Because these things can accumulate. However, I feel very strongly that the human body can regenerate itself. I know that from firsthand experience, and the liver of all things is really amazing at this. Now, the reason some of you that might be listening, or anyone that's experienced this, if your liver, if you've taxed it from alcohol, drugs, chemicals, any of those things, it's going to affect your liver, and then it's going to affect your breathing, your lungs, your digestion, and things start to get out of balance. So we go in, we start clearing this area, and then the waste can start to eliminate through your gallbladder, through the bile, through the bowels, through the kidney, and the urine. So you have both parts of the body that can start breaking these things down. And the other thing, as I was thinking of this, trying to think, how can I present this in a general way? Because truly one size doesn't fit all. So I wouldn't say go get everything and do that. We want to look at it if you're on medications, if you have allergies, if you have other comorbidities, all those things factor into how we go through this process. However, if you create real simple with the food, and then you start adding a little bit of tea, this will create a baseline to start to see what the body's doing. And I know I saw some people are going and getting a lot of medications. Again, be careful with that. Get what you need. Like if you can't breathe and they want you to be on an inhaler or a steroid, that's fine. It'll get you out of the 911, but listen to your body, feel into it. And some of these will help expel some of the phlegm and the mucus. And oftentimes, this is a trick that my grandma did to my dad. She would give him Ipecac. That would actually induce vomiting and get any things out of the body. She would do this as a proactive measure. I don't know if it was needed as much. Sorry, Grandma. But that's another thing. When you have toxins in the body, you might start purging on both ends. And don't be alarmed. That's the body's way of handling poisons in the body. So if you start vomiting, if you start having diarrhea, don't panic, just record it, and make sure you're getting hydrated. And another way to get hydrated is to eat watery vegetables and watery fruits. So that would be like tomatoes, has a lot of potassium in there. You'd eat cucumbers. You could eat any watery fruit that's going to quench your thirst, because this is how animals get their hydration in the forest. And this is how we can get our hydration. Now, for anyone that's in a location where it's been impacted by chemicals, you're going to want to make sure that you get any food from an outside source coming in, or sent to the perimeter and go there and have your meals and eat. Stay away from any contaminated area if possible. So this is a great time for anyone that's living to set up a watering hole. This is a great time for people to set up a dining hall where people can go and eat and get their water, and even a shower facility is super, super helpful in these situations. And I want to just really encourage anyone listening, whether this is for this moment or any future moments, is this is all possible. I walked in the breast cancer walk many times over. They moved a whole city for us to have showers, water, a full kitchen to cook the meals. So there's no reason this cannot happen for everyone. And the only thing I would, from a person like that works with people in illness, is I would say put this outside the perimeter of the circle that they have where people are being impacted. And it might be more on the southwest side of town beyond that ring. And it may be a pain, but people could run shuttles until everything gets cleaned up properly. I wouldn't even necessarily stay in there. You could even have a tent city put up for you guys and have everything you need. And then you're still looking over your home, your businesses, and your land, but not being as impacted as you might be if you keep going back in and staying there. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm hoping that anyone from the outside that's not impacted, that's listening, if you have resources and you can help bring them into these impacted areas, whether it's the science for remediation, where it's the soil to help remediate the land, whether it's the trucks to bring in hot showers, tents for cooking, and bathrooms, so they can be in a nomad city for a bit. I mean, think about Burning Man, what they do out there. We can bring these things in. I did a whole project at university about this. We can bring in temporary housing till everything gets remediated. I encourage you guys to hold the vision of remediating what is yours. There's no reason to have to give it up. And I know you're heartbroken, but please, please, please look beyond what has been done to you guys. And it's heartbreaking, but I want to encourage everyone to lean into what's possible. So some of this, which I'm talking about, the inspiration is food that we feed ourselves. When we feel like there's a possibility, then it can motivate us. And this is a necessary food. The second part in these type of situations, when we get chemicals impacting our liver, this creates anger. And many people are more than likely angry. I've seen it on social media. The anger that impacts anyone in this situation is really an invitation to come to a calm affect, to practice patience, and push forward into action. And that action will help the whole, will help the community. So there's been a lot of people coming in, and I just encourage you, this is a people project. Don't over focus on outside helping hands, meaning municipalities. I do feel there's a lot of private sector people that could jump in and help. And this would be a really good time to do that, because then we can put these systems into place to help from a private sector versus a public sector. Because clearly after the past 3 years, the public sector is not designed to respond. It's just too antiquated. I don't know what the issue is with all of you municipalities, but it seems like you guys really maybe should go down to basic overseeing of cities and a country and stay out of all this periphery stuff, because you guys can't handle it. It just seems like it's too problematic for all of you. So I don't mean that disrespectful, but that's really what it amounts to. So if we bring it back to the food intake and the water, I want you to start simple. I want you to listen to your body, and the other things you can eliminate. And this is tricky sometimes, because it's, especially with the food prices the way they are right now, is to eat non-processed food that's cooked. So anyone that's listening that's in the area that can bring in food trucks and start cooking for them outside of the circle, the more data we get, we'll know what's happening. But that is better for you guys to have fresh cooked food. simply cooked food, not too many spices. You just want to think, let's keep it simple, really simple, until my system calms down. And especially if you're having the body's getting rid of the poison by vomiting and diarrhea, you want to keep it simple. So that old adage, brat diet, bananas, applesauce, what is it? Banana, brat, isn't it brat? Yeah, brat, toast. All those things are going to help you, and rice. I was like, what's the R? I wanted to say radishes, which are a good remediator. So those things will help settle the system and give yourself a place to start. And then finally, the other things that I mentioned that are good remediators are miso, especially when I'm working with cancer patients. This helps pull out what's not needed from the remediation, along with seaweed or algae or chlorophyll or iodine. There's a couple products I'll put below that are different companies that I know of that have good products. Sea moss is another one. There's a lot of them out there. If you have questions about them, you want me to do a check or due diligence, I do that all the time. And the final component is you want to be really clear on if you are taking medications. None of these have contraindications. This can happen with food and herbs. So if you have questions about that, send me an email at s@suzannetoro.com. I'm happy to look at it. I can do I'll do the best I can, but send me what you got, what you're taking, and what your current symptoms are, and we can help you dial it in from there. But my heart goes out to everyone. Just final recap is keep it simple, remove processed food, remove any kind of things that have glyphosate, which is pesticides or additives in it. And if you could stay away from any recreational drugs or alcohol right now till the body can reset, this will help out a lot. And for the children, really see about getting them some applesauce, some steamed carrots. Carrot soup would be really good for them because they may not like seaweed. They might like the salty miso soup. So play around with it. And if anyone can help out over there, or it could be a hub in any of the impacted areas here in this nation and others, we'll do our best to create a network. Just reach out to me. And I am signing out with a full heart, a big hug, a soft gaze, a deep bow, and a namaste.
Once again, I want to thank you all for listening into this segment of Mind You and Food. And this is brought to you by BeSimply. Also, we're going to exit out with a little Kadri Scott, All I Need. And final note, I forgot to mention, I blended a fun little tea. I'll put the recipe below. If someone wants it, I will send it to them. The first person gets it. Email me at s@suzannetoro.com. Send me your best mailing address and your full name. You all have a beautiful next moment, and we'll see you soon.
Stars, trees, clouds, and the moon. They all have a meaning and they look just like you. Someplace else, someplace new. All I really wanna do is flee under the stars, in the trees. Baby, that's all I need. Dance where you walk and you feel ecstasy. As long as you are right there next to me. What if I am to find all that I'm looking for in my mind? All I really wanna do try to push far ahead.